All right, welcome. So, the concept of this class is about vision and detail. And in this week's Parshat, Mishpatim, so the word Mishpatim, familiar with that phrase? Like each week's Torah portion has a different name. So Mishpat means what? Mishpatim. Huh? Could be, yeah. What else? So it's kind of portions, right? So you have kind of judgments and laws. So think about it. Over the last number of weeks of the Torah, they've been going through the Exodus, right? Mount Sinai, leaving Egypt, the 10 plagues. So you have that whole series. And what's the next big thing that happens once, right? They get the 10 Commandments. What's the next big story that happens after the 10 Commandments? It's a big, big, big thing. They have a big party, and then the golden calf. Yeah, spot on, right? So why all of a sudden does it stop? The story stops. They're telling all this amazing story of the Exodus and Mount Sinai and the Ten Commandments and Revelation and Covenant. And then all of a sudden they get into all of these hokey, minute detail laws. Because the next big juicy story is the golden calf, the sin of the, right? They have a huge massive party, get drunk, all these crazy things, and you have this golden calf scenario. So why all of a sudden does the Torah stop and tell all these details? So first I want to hear your assumptions. Okay. So it's a revamping of stopping, taking a break, hearing what you can mess up on. But it doesn't even go into that. In other words, the golden calf hasn't happened yet. So there's no major mistake. So right, it's gone through the Exodus. We went through enslavement, freedom, the plagues, Pharaoh being like stubborn and stuck, crossing the Red Sea, the journey to Mount Sinai, and then the covenant. We haven't even gotten into the golden calf yet. Why does the Torah stop and then go into all this nitty gritty, hardcore details? We're talking about responsibility for damages. We're talking about protection of property, laws of justice, Mishpatim. We're talking about the laws of Shabbat and the festivals. Why all of a sudden, in the middle of one big juicy story and another big juicy story, which hasn't happened yet, does it go so nitty gritty into laws and rules? Okay, keep going. Okay, so you had all these great things that were happening, all this abundance, God showing up in all these different ways. And then God says through the Torah, all right, now we got to create some structure. So it kind of sounds like a really amazing concept, especially if you're in the education world, you're doing psychology, right? You want people to have freedom, but freedom comes more successfully with structure, right? So we had this whole thing. We went from slaves to freedom. But now, if the yoke of burden is off of us, we're no longer slaves on a daily basis. But we just got the Ten Commandments. We have to do this. We have to do these things that are ordained to us. Are you saying that because of that, God's now saying, hey, now let's get into some nitty gritty details? So now, instead of going from slavery to freedom, we don't want you to become too free, too excess? Focused. Yeah, okay. Cool. What do you think? So what's the fear? Why do you think they would lose sight? Remember that what they just came out of. They just got out of Egypt. They just got the Ten Commandments. They just crossed the Red Sea. So there's an entitlement in a way. Yeah. Okay. So really interesting, right? So why interrupt the flow which is a big question. Why go from one juicy story to another juicy story with this stop of details? And my question is, what does this have to do with being a leader? Because everything I want to share about this class and what I love about this book, it's all based on Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who's the chief rabbi of England, and it's Lessons in Leadership. A really outstanding book. It like brings in like business mindset and entrepreneurship with leadership stuff. So it's the idea that great leaders, whether they're CEOs, parents, they have the ability to connect very lofty ideas with very specific details, right? Grand ideas. But how do you get a grand idea done? You can't just think about it. Right, action steps, right? One of my favorite quotes from one of my mentors, Dr. Walker, goes, "The universe rewards the action step." So you can say, I want this to happen. I know it's going to happen. I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to meet this great person. Right? Okay, but what are you going to do about it? And in Hebrew, the term for that work is hishtadlut. You got to put the effort in. Or as they say, you got to put some skin in the game, right? So nothing is just going to show up by you just thinking about it. But so it's funny because, right, in the law of attraction world, actually the way that people assume of what it is actually not true. They don't think like, if I think about it, it will happen. Actually not true. It's actually how you feel about it. In other words, when you have the feeling of what your life will be like with that already in your life now, without it even showing up in real life, is when you create a drop of resistance. You drop all the resistance around it, and you create a vessel for that to happen much easier. So it's not, I'm going to think about it, all of a sudden there's going to be a Ferrari in the parking lot. It's when I have the excitement in my life of the same feeling in multiple ways, other things will start showing up that will allow me to be on that path to get there. So I wonder how much that means. These things were showing up for the Israelites. They were enslaved. They had a mindset of slavery. They never thought freedom would come for them. And all of a sudden, like this, things started changing because who do they have help them get that? Moses, right? But what was Moses' first challenge? When God came to him and said, I want you to represent us. Yeah, why? Yeah. Right, all the self-doubt. So was Moses' process of going from a complete self-doubt, I have a speech impediment, why are they going to listen to me, I'm not really a leader, what's the big step that he had to take? Bigger than that. Self-belief, self-actualization. So I really think this whole story that we miss and we don't talk about enough is, where is our purpose in self-actualization from truly believing into what you're capable of doing? It's very psychological, right? So you're wanting to become a therapist. That's great. Like, I want to become a therapist. I want to become a therapist. But also, do you believe that you're going to be able to actually help people even though you don't know what you need to know yet, right? And you're going into what field? Like, what do you want to be? What field are you in? Okay, so are you where you want to be now, or there's something further in the future for you? Okay, so what's the ultimate? Okay, right, so from where you're at now, do you know that once you have all that information, you're going to be an amazing PA or an amazing doctor? Or do you have doubt? But what determines the difference between believing you will? I'm asking for you, yeah. Do you have faith that with the right training, the right experiences, you're going to do amazing? Well, can you help? Can you help more people being a good doctor or being a great doctor? Can you help more people being a good doctor or a great doctor? But scales, right? It scales. You can help a lot of people being good, but if you're great, you know what the difference is? And this is a very good marketing mindset. Yeah. So they're missing stuff. They're not getting the bigger picture. Yeah. Well, you're talking about a system that's already messed up. But I'm talking about from the bigger philosophy of things, that when you are spending one-on-one time with someone, when you're spending one-on-one time with your students, do you know that when you're with them for the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, that you're fully present and you're giving them everything of your ability? Okay, that's what I want to know. Or would you doubt it? Because you know what the difference is when you believe what your capabilities are, and people start knowing that, the difference is that you're not going to go have to sell yourself. People are going to start calling you. In other words, there's people out there that will never carry a business card. Because once they know who that person is, people are going to want to call them. Because they know they're great. And the average person isn't like, you're not going to settle for mediocre. So this is the distinction. I'm wondering, like, as we're going through this process of learning what we were going through psychologically during that process, how do we figure out what our mediocre, I'm okay, I'm good, to how do you become great? And I think that's the distinction of leadership. And a great leader has vision and detail. You can see the macro, the bigger picture, and you can see the nitty gritty of that perspective. And again, that's the difference. There's someone who's a coach, who's an athletic trainer to like LeBron. He was Kobe Bryant's athletic trainer. He was Michael Jordan's athletic trainer. The guy doesn't, his name is Tim Grover. He doesn't carry a business card because you know who he is. Once you know who he is, you track him down to want to work with him. He doesn't need a business card. Person here working at a gym, hi, my name is, and you're lucky if someone calls you back, right? Two very big distinctions. And I think, like you said, once Moshe owned the fact that he can do this, people started looking to him as a leader. He didn't have to convince people to now follow me, right? And I think that's a very important detail of being a leader. So this idea of being able to create a large vision with a highly specific detail. So without the vision, the details are just tiresome. They're just an exercise of fluff. I could do that, but it's not focused. Right. It's not focused. It's entrepreneurial ADD, right? So there's a story of three men who were employed cutting blocks of stone. When asked what each one of them do, one person said, I'm cutting stone. The second person said, I'm earning a living. And the third person said, I'm earning a living. And the third person says, I'm building a palace. So, right? Number one's focusing on what's right in front of them. I'm cutting this stone. Number two says, I got to do what I got to do to take care of myself. Number three says, look and wait to see. You don't see it yet, but this part is going to become the next part, and it's going to build, and it's going to build, and build. You may not see it right now in front of me, but eventually this is going to become a beautiful palace. So my question is right now, which one are you in your own mind about what you're working on presently in your life? Are you, I'm cutting a stone, I'm in this job, I'm in this position right now. All I see is what's directly in front of me and I don't see anything else? Are you, I'm doing this because I have to get people off my back, or I got to pay my bills? Or are you doing it because I'm building my own emotional, spiritual, psychological palace? So where would you be? Awesome. So you're very detail focused right now for the growth. So there's a trajectory, there's a path. Very cool. Okay. Yeah. So that focus is there. All right. Right, so you're building the palace. You don't see it yet, but you can see what it's like. You know what it's going to be like. You can envision yourself doing. Yeah. Well, and I'm wondering like which parts of your life are what also. If you really sat and thought about this, and this could be kind of like a homework assignment, and to kind of like make a list of like those three categories. Which one are you cutting stone? Right? Which one are you making a living? Right? Which are you doing because it's obligatory? And what are you doing in your life that's yeah. But I wonder if, like, even in the part where you're cutting stone, I think the mindset, the limitation of that mindset is it's just this stone. I can't figure out anything else until I do this stone, and then there could be another stone. And I can't think about that next stone until I finish this. So it's very small minded in that perspective, right? And then you have the middle person who's, I gotta do this because I gotta put food on my table. And I don't really care about anything else. I just want to get that paycheck at the end of the day and go home. And the third person is, I'm building something big. It's not all there. It hasn't all manifested yet. But I'm willing to put that sweat, tears, and effort in because I know down the road it's going to have this big dividend. So figure out, right? Part of the first challenge is figure out where in your life and which aspects of your life are you doing which one of those three. So what do you think?
I was actually going to say before that I feel I'm a mix. If I look at job-wise, and I'm already people often mistake it, but they're like, oh, because they tell me how I'm doing so great and everything. I'm like, not yet. You'll see, but not yet. And they're like, no, you gotta believe in yourself. The kids all say good things. You're being voted best teacher, and I'm like, yes, but we're not even close to being done. And so it's mistaken, but to me, it's because I see such a great pictures. I have so many health goals. Most of them are not really for me, they're for like the kids and school and whatever. And personal life, it depends. I think a lot of times I'm not that other ones. And then there are that moments where you're stuck at that one piece and you don't go back until you stop, reflect, look it all together, and go back and forth.
Yeah. So I want to share a major concept with you. And this is where leadership really kicks in. And what I've learned from my journey over the last couple of years, you might know this a little bit more because of our conversations. For the last couple of years, I've been doing this really amazing entrepreneurship program. And it was started by a guy who's a capital venture, owns about 50 different companies. And he teaches people, even if you own your own company, how to become a more successful business owner. So if you're going to be a therapist, even if you're working for someone else, you still have a caseload. If you're going to be a PA or a doctor and you don't have your own practice, you're going to be working for someone else. You still have your case, right? You still have to manage, right? And you're working in school. So I would call those, if you're not working for yourself, but you're helping grow something else, that's an intrapreneur. You're the person inside, intrapreneur, helping it grow, right? But you can only help it grow as much as they allow you to do that based on the structure of the system. So if you can give and give and give and give, but they're not rewarding for you, they're not giving you buy-in, then you gotta check. Right? I had this conversation today with a client. It was the second of the same conversation, but she works for a corporate company, and I'm like, how much do you know you need to make at the end of the day in order to feel that you can take care of your bills and not worry about your children, and you can have a lifestyle that's comparative to where you come from that will be way better than it is now. And she gave me a number. I said, okay, how long have you been working at this company? She's like, oh, 5, 6, 7 years. Have you talked to your management about within the next 3, 4, 5 years, will you be able to make that money? She said, no, I haven't. So number one, how do you know you will be able to? Or you're just assuming that one day they'll honor you by saying, you've been working here for a long time. We think you should get this amount of money. It's not going to happen, right? And maybe they will promote her into a different position, but maybe it'll be $20,000 short. And maybe it'll take 8 years. And I said, okay, so if you weren't doing this, what other field would you want to be in? And that person named a medical field. I said, oh, okay. And in that medical field, could you make that amount of money in the next 5 years? And she said, yes. I said, okay, so you have a very big challenge that no one else will ever give you. Within the next 2 weeks, I want you to go to your manager. I say, I would love to stay with this company. I've been here for a long time. Within the next 3 to 5 years, what additional trainings can I do? And how far do you think I can get to what pay salary? And if they say you really can only probably go with your education, whatever, you can really only go 2 or 3 more steps up, but you'll never make anywhere near that money, gotta quit. But how many people don't ever ask that? Or they get comfortable or they're afraid of making that decision to go elsewhere because it's safe. Yeah, pay bills. Yeah. Well, you hit the point. It's fear. Going back to Moshe, right? There's fear. Because we think in a box. We're trained in a box. You go to school, you get a degree, you go to school more, and then you work in that field for the rest of your life until you die and retire, right? But that system literally is a system of enslavement. It's slavery. It's our own Egypt. Because we never think about what we can do to do more, to do bigger. Because we're told if you're not doing good for someone else, especially in our fields that we're thinking about, why should you think about yourself first? So I had a client that called me that I saw 5 years ago, and they wanted to come back for something. And I'm no longer taking their insurance. I'm fully not in network. And I told them my prices. They're like, wow, you went up a lot. Yeah. It's been 5 years. I'm more specialized. I don't see all these things anymore. She's like, I don't know if I can afford it. I'm like, all right, well, I can make you a referral to someone else. No, I could have said, oh, I feel bad. You're my past client. I even said, make me an offer. And I'll let you know. What can you afford? And even that number I couldn't risk taking to see for that client. But I have to know what my worth is. And even though I want to help that person, but I'll be doing them a disservice by making myself struggle during that time frame. Exactly, and I don't want to resent anybody because if I'm here and they're asking me to work here, I can't. I care about them, they're great people, but I can refer them to someone else for that. And I know they're probably not going to get, right? But you have to know your value, but that's the idea of leadership and vision, and I can't obtain more if I keep going backwards. To think about that, right? So when they talked about, and they'll talk about it a little bit further, but one of the details is what was going on in the tabernacle, in the temple, with building the altar. So when you think of like the ramp up to the altar where they did the sacrifices, do you know what it looked like? Do you remember? Have you ever discussed it? So this is a really interesting idea. So it says that the ramp should be a ramp. It should not be steps. So the first idea is, well, when they're going up in their cloaks, you don't want to embarrass or be immodest to the steps because you're on a holy item. And you don't want the holy item to be embarrassed by seeing some part of the person's nakedness in an immodest way while they're going to do a holy act. So it's a very simple translation of it, right? Because if you take a step, what happens? The legs separate. But if it's a ramp, you can shuffle up, right? So that's a very simple technical thing. Philosophically, psychologically, what's the difference between a ramp and steps? Psychologically. Right. Yeah. And what happens when you're tired? Right? You said each step is you have to go up, and I have to go further, and I have to go further. So there could be a positive thing that I'm not there yet, right? And I have to more to achieve to get there. What's the negative side? What will happen once you get tired? You stop, and what happens? You don't move anymore, and you stay on that step. And you can stay on that step as long as you choose. And you can be like, I'm good. Exactly. Because there's a nurse, right? So with the ramp, If you're not going up, you're going down. So psychologically, if we apply this to our life, being a leadership position, having vision, having detail, the steps maybe are the details, and you have to go and accomplish that, but you have to constantly be moving forward. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere. You're eventually going to start. The gravity is going to pull you backwards. And so, question number 2 of the night is, where are you resting on your steps instead of making it a ramp in your life? What are the areas of your life where you're stopping and getting comfortable and be like, I'm okay here. I'm going to take a break right here. Where are you settling? Where are you saying, I need a break for 3 years on this? Yeah. And so if they say no, you're not ready, then what? What's the next step? Don't emotionalize it. What's the next step? Yeah. So you're already doing everything you need to be doing. Right. Well, you're saying the next step is out of my control. But at a certain point, don't they have to say yes? But if you show up and they say no, and then you disappear, who did you give your power to? So then my bigger question to you is, in what ways in your life are you giving your power to other people? Don't answer that question. I want you to marinate that. Right. And I've known you for 25 minutes. But you already answered that in that field. I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be shut down. They're going to crush my dreams. And therefore I'm going to give up and not try. I'm not even going to show up. So first of all, thank you for being like vulnerable. This is like not what you probably expected in a class, but how can I not? I would be ripping you off if I didn't bring all these questions to the table. So yeah, you guys can run away now if you want. You can walk out. You can walk out of the class. See you later. So, yeah. Awesome. So it's very similar in a way. How many hoops do I have to jump through in order to get where I want? Yeah. So, are you familiar with Sarah Blakely? Do you know the clothing Spanx? Women's under. So she went to University of Florida. She went to become a lawyer. And she decided that one night when she was going out, she had these pair of jeans and she's like, oh, they don't look as thin as I want. So she took a pair of her pantyhose, cut them, and wore them under her jeans so everything looks nice and aligned. And she realized, like, wow, like how many times have like my friends and women do this to want to have like, right, to be able to fit into whatever they want to fit into, and they feel good about it and they feel better about their body. So she started coming up with all these prototypes. And she went around to all these clothing companies designers, most of them, 99% of them were men, and they all said no. She took her entire life savings, I think it was like $4,000 or $7,000, then created prototypes, and then went around, and when finally someone said yes to her. The company is now, God knows how much. She's the first self-made woman billionaire in the world. Self-made woman billionaire. Because every time someone said no to her, she went back. Yeah, if you're convinced of what you want, and you know it's authentic for your soul, and what your purpose is, do not let anybody talk you out of it. But you're not starting all over again. If you look at it that way, yes. But if it's just the next level of what you have to do, well, remember, because you weren't born here. So yes, do you have to do it all over again? Yes. But are you really doing it all over again, or is this kind of the way that God, or did God ordain this, right? In a way, it's frustrating. There you go. Right. So if you're taking refresher courses, it's gonna be. You can start talking about it different. Right. To get pissed off. Yeah. I get it. Yes, guidance counselor. Well, what step are you taking too much of a break? That you got comfortable and you're like, oh, it's too much work for the next step.
I think right now, I think I was just there for a very long time, and like kind of like at a standstill. Although I don't really believe there's a standstill, you're either going up or down, and I was kind of like going more down. And I think I'm starting to get above that, and I'm going and I'm going and I'm going. I'm not saying the cure is gone. It's there. I'm terrified, but I'm kind of just going with it.
Which is. So what is it? Yeah.
Right now, it's taking a step on myself on my own. I'm in the process of trying to buy a home, and that terrifies me. And I feel anxious a lot of times, but I know it's a good thing. I know why I want to do it. I know what I want for myself and my future. And to me, it's a big step into getting there. This are my goals. This is what I want to accomplish. This is how I'm going to get there.
So don't all three things come back to fear? Still? Fear and frustration? Right? For me, like my next business, any business investment I have to make of like growth in my business holds me back out of fear that I'm not going to get a return on my investment. That I'll hire someone and I'll lose money. Or they'll tell me that they're going to do a certain amount of things and they don't give me that quality. That's what's held me back in my development. Because there's people who I know who are doing what I'm doing on a much larger scale, much more speaking, much more like. But they went all in and they said, "I'm going to take this $10,000 and do this." And for me, I'm like, I'd rather have the $10,000 in my bank to keep it safe. Right, but at a certain right, exactly. But here's the thing, right? If I'm not making money on that $10,000, it doesn't. Right. It's going backwards, and my business is not growing. My reputation isn't growing. So it's a mindset that we have to have, or at least that we're taught to have, versus investing it into something. Yeah.
uno nuevo, porque los jóvenes dicen, copió el judaísmo. Todo basado en el judaísmo.
Yeah.
Se muere.
Well, it's a way we have to check our ego, right? In a way. It's frustrating. You're right. Like on the literal sense of things, you're 100% right. On the other side, it's kind of saying I have to check my ego to be okay being around a bunch of people who don't know as much as me, who I can teach the class, which you probably could, right? It's frustrating. For sure, it's frustrating. It's part of the process.
Muy interesante. ¿Qué tiene que ver?
But you're going to know it really well now.
¿Cuál es la conexión?
That's the thing. You're going to know it really well. If you really look, this is another opportunity for me to be more of an expert.
Dicen que la persona es considerada que es apuntada,
Hopefully.
como el líder de la
I can tell you that 99% of the stuff I learned in graduate school, I don't use.
es responsable de todo lo que pasa en su país. Son
Right,
líderes,
at that level. Right, for sure. For sure.
como en Argentina, el que más plata tiene, el que más poder tiene. Entonces el líder es el que representa. Cuando en tu país una persona mata sin querer, es porque hay algo que no está bien en el líder.
Makes sense.
Porque el líder sufre cuando su gente debería ser así.
Yeah.
Comete
Well, that goes back to paying attention to all the details, right? Again, it's macro versus micro. It's the clouds, being in the clouds, being a dreamer, and being in the dirt, the nitty gritty. What do I got to get done? So Thomas Edison, famous Thomas Edison, said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, right? It's the attention to detail that separates the great artists, the composers, the filmmakers, all that, right? How many times do you hear people say, I'm going to do this? I love this when couples come to me, or anybody, but usually it's like more often my couples, and they're like, we want to have a great marriage. Okay. What books have you read? Podcasts? YouTube videos? Conversations with a spiritual leader? Okay, so you're full of crap. You have this big lofty idea, but you've put nothing towards. So my job is to call them out on that. So you can't talk a big game without nothing to back it up. And I think that's what the separation of the details is. Now I know what I have to do, but I have to take those steps to do it. Right? Steve Jobs from Apple, he was obsessed with details. When he started creating the Apple stores, he said, I want every single Apple store that has multiple levels to have a glass staircase. And all of his engineers say, we can't build one that will sustain the amount of people that might be coming up and down it. So what do you think he said? I don't care, solve it. He owned the patent. And he created something with his engineers to go and create. Multiple times that happened with Apple. If this doesn't exist, find a way. I don't care what the rules are of conventional thinking. Find a way to break it. Yeah. But you can see the brilliance behind that. So how does this make sense with the Torah? So the genius of this idea of what was being taught in this week's reading was to apply the principle to society as a whole. The Israelites come through this transformational experience. They knew nothing of what this life would be like. Remember, they've been in slavery, heavy labor every day, backbreaking labor. They didn't know freedom. They didn't know what it was like to make their own decisions. So they had to go through that in order to cherish, to make a very special relationship with this concept of freedom. So at Sinai, through Moses, God gave them a mission statement. And he said, you should become a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So here's a big question that I get from one of my rabbis, Rabbi David Aaron, who's written amazing books. What's the purpose of keeping or celebrating or observing? I don't like the word keeping Shabbat. It's really like, he jokes like, oh, I keep Shabbat or I keep kosher. Where do you keep it? Do you keep it in your pocket? Like, what does that mean? You're keeping it. Celebrating, right? It's a much better word. what's the true
Ahora,
purpose
en esto hay esto que leí ahora,
of following all these things, rules, guidelines, mandates, structures? What's the what's the biggest purpose for all this? Why? Why should we choose to engage in a
cada
dance
letra de la-
with the
porque
Torah?
dice,
What are we supposed to get out of it at the end of the day?
que si que piedra
What type
no
of person are we
pone
supposed to become?
otra, y por qué piedra y no una madera. Todo esto hay Talmud de Parras, con preguntas y
Okay.
respuestas, historias y comentarios y deducciones y discusiones, es impresionante.
So more purpose,
Un día
more
tienes que
structure.
preparar,
Okay.
preparar un tema de esto y se vuelve loco.
Like, why bother? Why even be here tonight? Why learn? Why even learn Judaism?
Un hombre que le pega a su esclavo.
Like, what do you like? If I do
Y le
this,
pega,
I will become
o
what?
le pega a su esclava con un palo. Es decir, si es con lo físico del cuerpo, es una ley. Si es con un instrumento,
Like they had baseball cards, like rabbi baseball cards. They're very
si se muere, pena de muerte. Si el esclavo se muere, pena de muerte. Si pasan 2 días y todavía no se puede levantar,
right.
queda
That
libre,
extreme.
tiene que pagar los costos. Si uno pelea entre 2 hombres y una mujer y está embarazada, estaba ahí, está libre.
Mhm.
Ahora, si fue sin querer, paga los gastos. Si fue a propósito, pena de muerte. Pero como se ve en el todavía. De acá aprendemos que a partir del embarazo, ya se considera tiene leyes de criatura, después del aborto está prohibido. De esta ley. Se deduce de esta ley.
Yeah. So for you,
Prohibir el aborto.
at the end, if I do these things, I will become what?
Son 40
By learning, by coming to Kspace, by being involved in a Jewish life, I will be what?
Pero el alma empieza a
But what's your definition?
Sí, 40, 50, 60 años empieza a
No. I'm not talking about religiously a title.
Antes que eso,
I'm talking about on a psychological, emotional, spirit. Okay.
Sí, pero si todavía no se formó vida, no se formó vida.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're experiencing different ways of seeing things, and you get to choose from that.
Sí, ¿sabes por qué? Muy interesante. ¿Escuchaste la pregunta? ¿Por qué se puede abortar? Muy buena pregunta y de la respuesta espectacular basada en esto. Hay una ley que si alguien
Okay.
no mató,
And what will be the outcome of finding the things that you like?
en Estados Unidos la ley es que va preso. Dentro de homicidio o homicidio.
Okay.
Se culpó, pero sin esperar y si alguien va a matar, la cuchilla. Y no
So
vuelve a
spiritually
repetir.
full, comfortable with maybe that's right. That is the connection. What I'm doing on my daily basis is spiritually fulfilling.
¿Qué pasa en caso de un bebé?
Yeah.
Que
Very
por
cool.
culpa de él, la madre se muere. El bebé se
way I look
transforma
at it,
en un
one, like you
potencial
mentioned
asesino.
earlier, is purpose.
Y la
What
ley
you
es
want out of
hay
life
que
right
matarlo
here.
porque es un potencial
To
asesino.
me, one of my purposes is coming right out better than I
Corta,
started,
pero su
leaving the
existencia
world better than I
es matar a
started. That
alguien.
can seem like huge, but it's also very little. Making the person's day next to me a little bit better that day, helping myself to be a better day. And then the wife can also come back to, in my view, I want to build on my connection to God, and that's why we do things. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean keeping kosher, things like that, but whatever's going to make my
Es la misma ley que
connection
dice
to God
sea
strong,
para
my
matar
spirituality strong.
y no funciona
And I think
ya en
it may
el
be
corazón,
different for
el cerebro
everyone.
funciona. Puedes conectar
So it's interesting that you're talking about purpose. You're talking about choices of how to live a meaningful experience, how you can come into the world bigger than how you, right, leaving the world better than how you came into it. The crazy thing is, you don't need Judaism or the Torah for that at all. But I asked the question, why do we need to do all this stuff? And the way I look at it is, we don't need Judaism or the Torah for any of that.
No, el tema es si la mente, si el cerebro está funcionando. Si el cerebro funciona,
Mhm.
es señal de que está con vida.
Right. It shows a path of patterns.
No tenemos el caso de un chico que se va a un chico de aquel que se murió.
Right. Right. That's you decide that it's going to be meaningful. Right. So I'm going to take it from a very different perspective, and the answer is in the verse that I shared with you. At Sinai through Moses, God gave us a mission statement to become a kingdom of priests and priestesses and to become a holy nation. So nothing of what we said, and I would have given a similar answer years ago, has anything to do to become a better person, to do more good deeds in the world. You don't need to be Jewish. You don't need to have Judaism. You need to have the Torah. But when they're huh? No, to be a good person? Absolutely not. I think a person can be a complete atheist and be a great person. I don't think Judaism and spirituality isn't about becoming a better person. Right. But we're talking about what makes you holy. Now, hopefully inherent in holiness, being good is part of that, but you can be good without having this element of holiness. And that's why I want to challenge the thinking, because everything that you guys said was very good answers. Yeah. But you could be an a-hole, and you could be a bad person. Right. But that's why I'm not talking about ritual and religious obligation. I'm talking about, for sure. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Well, think about it. If we had the 10 Commandments, right? Each one of those are things that we should do or shouldn't do very specifically. So if you just did the 10 Commandments, as part of your process, you don't have to do all this other stuff. You could have stopped there and that would have been the greatest thing in the world. And you would have been fulfilling your potential. You, specifically, would be fulfilling the highest purpose and potential in this world. You don't have to take it to the next level of conversion, because now you have all this other crap thrown on you that's going to make it even more difficult to keep. But you're choosing that. Right? It's kind of ballsy, in a way. It's very ballsy. But I think the idea is this idea of a theory is zero without putting things into practice. That this whole set of these details is we can have this great theory of like becoming a holy nation, but if you don't know the nitty-gritty details of what you have to do, it's kind of like, I forgot the guy who does all these videos online where he talks about being enlightened. It's the guy with the red hair. I don't know if you've seen him. Where he makes fun of like all the hippie yogi stuff, and it's like, what would you do if like all your friends like were vegan and you were that one meat eater and you were trying to, right? The other, like, everything is flipped. And he makes it from he talks about everything from a very enlightened, right? From the very enlightened place, right? Very hashtag basic, but like, and he makes fun of that. And he's like, well, but I meditated for 20 minutes today. Everything in the world is amazing. I don't really care that I ran your dog over. Because I meditated after and the world is back in balance. And it was your dog's karmic outcome that I should run them over. So really, I helped your dog fulfill its purpose by being a sacrifice to the universe, right? We can make up any story we want, but the details are, if you follow this, it's like baking. When you're cooking regular stuff, you can screw up with the recipe, and it'll still come out good. But if you're baking, right. So I wonder if Judaism in this Parsha is saying, I want you to go from being a chef to being a baker. You can putz around in the kitchen. You can come up with some really good recipes. It'll be pretty tasty, but I need you to be precise. I need you to get specific. I need you to get detail oriented. Yeah? Very specific. And you can't eat pig, but you can make it into a football and exercise with it. Pig. But you make it back in the name. Football, American football, not football as in like soccer football. They used to be made from pigskin. So that's why back in the day they used to call we're throwing around the pigskin football. That was the term. Now it's made out of whatever. But so let's take it a little bit deeper. Yeah, we're good with time. So then the laws get really nitty gritty and they talk about slavery. Right? Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished, and if the slave dies, as a direct result. So right off the bat, we knew slavery existed. Right? And we're now in 2020. We know slavery's banished. So we have to struggle. We have to struggle with it, right? Well, in America, right? Right. I mean, there's different levels of slavery, but like at least slavery as in that type of thing. So let me take a step back. It says if you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years. But in the 7th year, they shall go free without paying anything. So, in this law, slavery is transformed from this is your birth circumstance to a temporary scenario. That instead of this being for the rest of your life, we're going to already tell you that you need to expect something different to happen, that you can't hold on to this forever, that you have to change. You have to be okay with letting go of something that you thought you were going to hold on to. And we're mandating you to let this go within a certain amount of time. So this bitter experience of slavery, we were slaves in Egypt, was not abolished overnight. It took 400 years. But now the Torah is saying, you got 6 years. We're not getting it out of your system completely because we've got correct structure. We got to detoxify you. Detoxification. So if immediately all slavery was abolished, for sure, right? Getting rid of a guy from your life. Yeah, right. You got to slowly detoxify. And then think about it. It wasn't abolished in America until the 1860s. And because of that, there was a civil war. So people even fought to keep it. But this was the opening law of Mishpatim was, again, anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if that slave dies. A slave is not property. They have the right to life. And in the laws of Shabbat, it says 6 days do your work, but on the 7th day do not work. And what does it also say in Kiddush? You, your donkey, your ox, your slave, born in your household, and the foreigner living among you. Why? Vayi nafash, so you could be refreshed. Nefesh, vayi nafash, to be rested, but it also means your soul. Your soul needs to do this. Your soul needs to let this go. Your soul needs to let go this mindset of slavery. So 1 day in 7, slaves were allowed to breathe this fresh air. And all these laws prepare the way for an abolition of slavery, even if it would take 3,000 more years to do this. So, let's wrap this up. So we have this macro sense of storytelling, right? There's a lot of stories in the Bible, and then there's a lot of nitty-gritty details, specifically right in the middle of all these storytelling. Very contradictory experience, right? Which is where we started off. Usually when you have law books, they're law. And when you have story books or history books, they're story. Very, 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 very few and far in between, except for the Bible, is one of the books that I know is storytelling with mix of law. Right? Constitution, all law. The Talmudic books, it's a mixture of story and law. It's still our legal system in the Talmud, but it's a mixture of both. So it's telling us of everything. You need the macro, you need the concept and the philosophy, and the greater ideas. What the end has to be considered in mind, but you also need the nitty gritty details to get there. So laws cannot be enacted truly from a deeper sense of philosophy, truer sense of potential, without a statement of why they came to be and what the end result should look like. Otherwise, right? That's why we talk about in politics, what does it mean of what the framing fathers meant? Framers' intent, thank you. Right? The founding fathers' framers' intent. We don't know. Because they left it so vague. Because what were they doing? They were coming from a Christian society that was super strict. You have to do this or you're going to get punished. Versus the story of us of like, hey, here's what we're looking to create. We're looking to create a utopian society where you have respect for your neighbors, where you have to leave your fields open for them to come and get food if they don't have food, to take care of your neighbors, to take care of the people who are downtrodden, to uplift them. We know what the end is in mind, and that's why there was that balance of that. So the topic that we had today is, how do you become a person of vision and detail? So this is why the Torah is unique with that it takes the narrative with the details of the law. And if we want to lead, if we want people to come with us, if we want people to follow your inspiration, clients, students, whatever it may be, you have to have, here's the bigger thing, here's where you want to end up. By working with me, by coming to me, you're going to get this, and now here's the step-by-step details of what we need to do to break it down. And I think that's the importance of vision and detail. There must be a narrative. You have to sell the story. You have to market yourself. Right? That's the difference, like I said before, between people coming and wanting to work with you versus you having to convince someone to do something. And if you do it the right way, you're never going to have to convince someone to ever want to work with you again. And you could be like, I'm really sorry, you don't meet my criteria to want to work with me. Because if they start asking certain questions, they're not going to be if they ask too many questions or they start challenging right off the bat, you already can see their philosophy of why they're stuck. So again, the narrative with the details is so important. The narrative is, this is what happened, this is who we are, this is why the vision is so important to us, and then there's law, the code. The attention to details. This allows us to trade vision into reality and turn our pain of our past of being slaves into a potential future. Right? We weren't even in Israel yet. We didn't even cross through into the Dead Sea. So no other law book, no other story, right, except for the Torah really shares it that way. And I think this is why it's the model that if you want to become great, if you want to become holy, right, anybody can become great. Go to a Tony Robbins workshop. You'll become amazing. Go listen to Oprah. You'll become amazing. Go listen to my podcast. You'll become better. But we were created and challenged. How do you become holy? And the holiness comes with, you have to have a goal in mind, and you have to know how to get there. So if you want that vision, and you want the details, I think that's the whole step-by-step way of getting there. Thoughts, questions, insights, challenges, rebuttals, disagreements?